Prologue. July 27th, the day of the Oromi River fireworks. On Cazenade Hill looking out over the town. A big burst spreads out like a curtain of light before my eyes. When I look next to me, you there. Your mouth opens. I like you. Your voice sounds muffled. It's as if I'm underwater. In a soundless world, the fireworks blossom, and all I can hear is your voice. You tell me your feelings. That was the moment I learned them. I opened my eyes in bed. I blinked a few times to make sure this was reality. The white ceiling gradually came into focus, and I became certain that what I had just had was a prescient dream. I've had prescient dreams ever since I was a kid. Apparently all the women in the Furami family can see the future in one way or another. Me, I have dreams. I say see the future, but I never see anything so epic as a global crisis, just little things around me. Stuff like what tomorrow's dinner will be. But this time I saw a boy tell me he liked me. To me, a 16-year-old, this seemed like a way bigger deal than any global crisis. The boy was Ryo Ichimilaya. He'd been my friend since we were little. I liked him, but I wanted to hide it, so I was always a bit hard on him around other people. I had no idea he liked me until I had this dream. But maybe he doesn't actually like me yet. I looked at the calendar hanging on the wall sideways from where I lay. It was July 13th. The Oromi River fireworks were on July 27th. I rolled to face up again and closed my eyes. 2 weeks, I murmured to myself. During these 2 weeks, he might end up liking me, too. The thought made my face heat up. 1. It had been 3 months since the April I started school at Maihana High. I had pretty much gotten used to this school and my class. Ichimilaya was a classmate. We had attended the same school since elementary, and occasionally ended up in the same class. Every time that happened, I was secretly thrilled. When I reached the classroom, I went straight to my desk. There were still only about 10 kids around, and he was one of them. His seat was next to the window in the very front row. He was sitting in it, talking to a friend standing across from his desk. He comes off a bit shallow with his brown hair, but everyone in our class knows he takes his responsibility seriously. He may look flashy, but he's class president. He had his hands by his ears that peeked out from under his short hair, and his elbows rested on his desk. For a minute, I was completely captivated by him. Normally I would set my bag on my desk and go to talk to my friend Miso Watanabe, who sits near him. When I passed by, I would give him a good morning, at least, but remembering the dream I had, I couldn't get myself to go anywhere near him. After standing there for a while wondering what to do, I decided to just sit down. During class, the backs of the 4 people in front of me got in the way, so all I could see was his head. But now I had an unobstructed rear view of him. I felt like I could watch him forever. But as I was staring at him thinking, next time I hope I get the seat next to him, he turned away from the friend in that seat and looked at me. Then he stood up and walked toward me. It felt like the closer he got, the more my pulse sped up. What? Why are you coming over here? I was panicking in my head. He kept walking until he was right in front of me. What's up? He said, peering into my face. Huh? Up? My face seized up and my eyes swam. I mean, usually you chat with Watanabe, right? Did you guys have a fight or something? He said, glancing over at Misa. Oh? No. Then do you have a fever or something? He went to put his hand on my forehead. I was so embarrassed I couldn't take it, and I stupidly brushed his hand away. When we were in elementary school I could joke, "Don't touch me," even though it's a harsh thing to say. But just now, I actually brushed him away. My regrets spilled out of my mouth. But even then I gave him a cold. "I'm fine, alright," he said, and went back to his desk to return to the conversation with his friend. I scoot up. This is all because of that dream. The sounds around me seemed to grow distant. Will he still tell me he likes me after what I just did? I started to worry that the future might change. The ability to predict the future has one defect. You lose it if the future doesn't go as you predicted. That's what my grandmother told me. She could predict the future, too. But she didn't have dreams. She said that the events of the next minute would appear in the back of her mind. 20 years ago, when my grandmother was 62, she predicted that my grandfather would get in a traffic accident. She was walking with him along the sidewalk, and what she saw was him being hit by a car on the crosswalk up ahead. She told him, and they decided to take a route that avoided the crosswalk. As a result, the accident she predicted didn't happen, and my grandfather was saved, but she also lost her ability. When she told me that story, she said, "You can change what you see, but only once, because you lose your prediction ability." Kid, used that one time to save someone important to you. So I couldn't choose my one chance on this future of Emilia confessing his feelings for me. This is a happy future. I can't go changing it. My grandmother changed the future she saw and didn't regret losing her ability. If I was going to change the future, I didn't want to regret it, either. Brushing his hand away may have been a terrible mistake. I decided not to be hard on him anymore, and to get along well enough that we could go see the fireworks together. Then 6 days went by. July 19th. The next day was the start of summer vacation. Thinking I had 2 weeks until the fireworks had been a relief, but I had completely forgotten about the break. Once it started, I wouldn't have any chances to see Emilia. We hadn't promised to go to the fireworks together or anything like that yet. Given what happened the other day, he probably wouldn't invite me. If we didn't see the fireworks, he wouldn't tell me he liked me in that setting. And then I'd lose my ability to predict the future. I let out a sigh. If I'm going to invite him to the fireworks, today is the only chance I have. I'll apologize for the other day and invite him. That's my only option. It was the moment I made up my mind as I was walking to school. I heard a car honking nearby. Everyone seemed to be moving in slow motion. But my thought process couldn't catch up. All I could think was that I was about to die. Just then, someone yanked my left arm. In the next instant, the world sped back up and I saw the light truck pass by. "Watch out! Are you stupid?" The voice was so loud and close I shuddered. When I timidly turned around, it was him standing there. I had been trying to cross a street with no light without looking first, and apparently he had saved me. When I looked up at him and said, "Sorry," I saw he was out of breath. Watching him, I realized something like this had happened before. In elementary school, I nearly fell into the river, and he grabbed my hand and saved me. Exactly like just now. It was what made me fall for him. I headed to school with him. The plan had been to apologize for the other day and invite him to the fireworks, but now I had another apology to make. Having already hit a setback, I walked with heavy feet. The rest of the way to school, he made sure to walk on the side closer to the cars. I was happy he was so kind but also felt bad, so I ended up looking at my feet. A little while later, I realized it was dangerous to not look where I was going, so I raised my head. But then a bit later I hung it again. As I repeated that sequence over and over, I made up my mind to apologize. "Hey, HM." He turned to me from where he was walking half a step ahead. I'm sorry. It's okay. Plus, you already apologized, didn't you?" "Yeah, but this is for today. And the other day? Did something happen the other day?" I brushed her hand away. "Oh, that was my bad. Don't worry about it." "Okay." The school gate had already come into view. I could see the guidance counselor standing on the lookout for any latecomers, even though it wasn't even past time yet. More importantly, pay attention while you're walking. I've been telling you since we were kids. I know, but you don't? Do you? And in a situation like this, shouldn't it be thanks instead of sorry? Yeah, sorry. I mean thanks. Then as a thank you, will you go see the fireworks with me? What? It's a thank you? So you can't say no? I was so happy. It made me think my prescient dream would come true. I hid my actual feelings and just said, okay, as if I had no choice. Even though I was happy enough to grin like a maniac, I desperately held the corners of my mouth straight. My feet felt lighter. I really need to work on being more honest about how I feel. In the morning, I opened my eyes and glanced over at the calendar on the wall. That's what I'd done every day since summer vacation started. The closer the fireworks came, the more my chest filled with anticipation and dread. 3 days left. It should go according to the prediction, right? I went to the living room and checked the TV for the weather report. It seemed like it would be sunny and everything on the day of the fireworks. I told myself it would be fine. That night, I got a phone call from Michimilaya. Seeing his name on my phone made me so nervous I couldn't get myself to answer. But somehow I managed it before he hung up. Hi. My voice might have cracked with that first word. But we set up the time and location to meet, and we agreed that we would wear yukata just like in my dream. The day of the fireworks? Don't you look lovely? Just like me when I was young. In the tatami room with their altar, my mom helped me get dressed. The indigo yukata with goldfish was a hand-me-down from her. She said she wore it when she and Dad went to see fireworks when they were younger. The design didn't feel outdated at all. It was a super cute yukata. Mom, have you changed the prediction already? I could glance at her in the mirror to see her tying my obi behind me. Not yet. Oh? She pulled the obi tight. She seemed to be doing a bunch of other things back there, but I couldn't tell what. A few moments later, she came out from behind me. Then, for the finishing touch, she went around me pulling out the wrinkles in the yukata fabric. Okay, you're all set. My reflection in the mirror looked so grown up, I hardly recognized myself. The red obi glowed against the indigo yukata. If I get to see my cute daughter in a yukata, what do I need to change a prediction for? Her words gave me confidence. I tried holding my money pouch in the mirror and turned around to see what I looked like from behind. You didn't go changing the future to get a boyfriend, did you? My mom said, standing beside me. No. The opposite. I saw him tell me he likes me. I said it without thinking. My. How wonderful it is to be young. She laid a hand aside her mouth and shot a purposely flirty glance my way. It seemed like she was imagining something indecent. Ugh. Anyhow. I'll see you later. Bye. Don't stay up too late. I practically flew out of the house. We had agreed to meet in front of the stone steps that lead up Casanade Hill. It was about 3 minutes away from my house on foot. The wooden sound of my get-it talking on the pavement was nice. No one else was heading in the same direction as me. They must have been all heading for the festival. Wearing get I had to take smaller steps, so I arrived at the meeting place in about 5 minutes. Michimilaya was already waiting there in his yukata. The gap between his bright brown hair and black yukata was cool and gave me butterflies. I had always dreamed of meeting him like this. In my imagination I'd say, "Were you waiting long?" And he would say, "Nah, I just got here." A typical fantasy. I decided to try to make it reality. "Were you waiting long?" It was only 4 words, but I sounded awkward. And my voice was so quiet. "Nah, I just got here." Your yukata's cute. I hadn't imagined him saying the word cute, and my face seemed about ready to burst into flames. It was so hot. Still, it wouldn't do to just stand there. So I said, "You clean up pretty well yourself," which I guess was kind of condescending. Really? I wanted to tell him how cool I thought he looked. But I couldn't. I really can't seem to open up. Huh. He looked bewildered for a second and then smiled. "Wanna get going?" he said, holding out his hand. I was embarrassed and shy, and totally swooning internally, but I tried to make it seem like no big deal. Still, when I reached out my hand, I couldn't quite get myself to take his. Finally, he ended up giving my hand a gentle squeeze. His hand around mine felt so big, and it was a little sweaty, but not gross at all. Maybe it was the heat, or maybe he was nervous. Imagining that kind of helped me feel less tense. We went up the stone stairs. There must have been 100. They were just wide enough so that the two of us could walk side by side. We naturally moved even closer together. There were lamps shining at intervals along the right-hand side, and the atmosphere was so dreamlike that it created the illusion that at the top of the stairs we would arrive in another world. The bugs we could hear in the surrounding trees added some summer charm to the night. And the sounds of our ghetto were a constant throughout. This place is so cool. I didn't know what it was like at night, he said, looking at the lamps. Yeah, this place was familiar to me. I had only ever been during the day, but my parents had told me how pretty the lamps were at night. After a few minutes, our view opened up and we reached the top. At the summit there was a field of grass about the size of a tennis court, and in one corner, a patch of flowers. I knew the area well during the day, but the atmosphere was completely different at night. It was so dark that if Ichimaya hadn't been there, I probably would have been scared. In my dream, the place overlooking the town where he had confessed his feelings for me was near a fence. Probably that. There was about 20 meters of waist-high fence made of wood about as thick as my thighs. Right about in the middle of that. Our feet naturally carried us in that direction. It's so pretty, I couldn't help but remark. Looking out over the town from the hill, we could see the lights from the stalls and lanterns through the gaps in the trees. It was rare to have such an illuminated night view of this small town. Did you want to go to the market? No, the fireworks are plenty, and the fireworks alone really did make my heart full. I would have been happy to walk around to the different stalls together, but I'm not sure my heart would have been able to endure the tension. For now the fireworks were enough. And if he told me he liked me as he did in the dream, I would definitely give the okay. For at least that moment, I could be honest about my feelings. And then we would have chances to see other fireworks or another festival and walk around the market together. They're about to start. A little while after he said that, checking the time on his phone, a huge round burst spread out before our eyes with a boom and then disappeared. The fireworks were beautiful. They were smaller than they had been in my dream, but seeing them for real had more impact. Maybe it was because in the dream, the only sound had been Ichimilaya's voice. Wow, he murmured and looked at me. Our eyes met. The thought that he might tell me right now made my heart bound. But he turned back to the fireworks. So did I. The Oromi River fireworks happen each year for an hour, and they fire off 10,000 shells. The festival is famous. Its final Yonchikudama, a huge fireworks show. After the first burst, they launched all kinds of fireworks. They really were amazing. I watched every year, but every year was a surprise. There were cute ones like a smiley emoji and a red and green one like a sliced open watermelon. One shell would make a huge blossom and another would fly through it and burst even higher. The contrast in altitude was pretty. They were all different colors and all different noises. Boom boom, crackle crackle, some that flooshed like the sound of a shower running. The fireworks serenaded us with various sounds. The rhythmic firing was almost like music. Around the middle of the show, they were firing so quickly that a whistler went up and a bunch of booming overlapped. The amount of light was overwhelming. It might as well have been daytime. The sky was so lit up. We enjoyed the fireworks together for about an hour. But as time wore on, I found myself wondering when he would say the words. I glanced at his face glowing and darkening in the light of the fireworks. It was such a waste that I couldn't just enjoy the show. But if the fireworks ended without anything happening, I would lose my ability to predict the future. And I might not be able to save someone important to me later on. The thought made a chill go up my spine despite the summer heat. The fireworks were almost over. I knew because after a pause, they started up again with even more intensity. It seemed to be the run-up to the blooming of the last big blossom. It had to be almost time for the Yonchikudama. That was when it hit me. If he didn't confess his feelings for me, not only would I lose my power, but we wouldn't go out, either. That would suck. I love him. So I made a wish. I wished on the fireworks like you were a shooting star. Tell me you like me like you did in the dream. I knew it was a selfish thing to wish for. He probably didn't like me like he did in the dream because I had been so cold to him all the time. All kinds of thoughts gathered along with the impatience in my mind. Then I heard the whiz of a launch that was much louder than any of the others. It had to be the sound of the final firework. He was still looking up at the sky. I wished with all my heart. Please, look at me. 2. The summer I was 16. July 27th. The day of the Oromi River fireworks. On Cazenade Hill looking out over the town. A big burst spreads out like a curtain of light before my eyes. You're next to me. I hear your voice. I like you. You tell me your feelings. That was the moment I learned them. I had the prediction when I was 6. It was a hot summer day with the sun beating down, but that didn't bother me because I was having a water gun fight with some friends from the neighborhood. For one moment, I lost consciousness. In that moment, I saw the confession scene. It was only a blip, so I don't think anyone noticed I had blacked out. When I told my dad about the image that had suddenly appeared in my head, he said it was a prediction of the future. And he explained how all the men in the Achimilaya family are born with the ability to see the future. The Achimilaya family had been Shinto priests and apparently that had something to do with it, but my dad didn't know the details. In any case, when I was 6 I saw what would happen 10 years later when I was 16. He said it was rare to see something so far in the future. My grandfather told me that a long time ago there was someone who saw as far as 1,000 years ahead. So even if it was rare, maybe that just meant for these 3 generations. The news also came with a warning. You'll lose your ability, so you must never try to change your prediction. My dad told me. I recognized the voice of the person who confessed their feelings. I guess voices don't change all that much in 10 years. Maybe because girls' voices don't drop like boys do. It was Kid Fu to me. We were in the same grade at the same elementary school. Our houses were close to each other, so we walked to school in the same group of kids and saw each other every day. Since we were in different classes, though, I had never talked to her. At our elementary school, we had class changes every 2 years, and in 3rd grade I ended up in the same class as Futami for the first time. We were even seated next to each other. Once classes were changed, we all introduced ourselves. After my turn, I excitedly listened to the new kids' intros, wondering if there were any I could make friends with. I was also curious what the kids I knew from 2nd grade would say. But when Kid Futami introduced herself, I felt different. I didn't know much about this girl who was going to tell me she liked me in the future. Her introduction was a unique chance to learn some things. I concentrated so I wouldn't miss a single word. About all I knew was that she was delicate and a little bit taller than me. That her fine, long hair was pretty. And that sometimes she put some of that long hair into a slender braid. I'm Kid Futami. Looking forward to having class together, despite my determination to not miss anything. That was all she said before sitting down. She seemed pretty nervous. Once in her seat, she heaved a sigh of relief. So I ended up not learning very much about Kid. But I did find out she was the type to get nervous in front of people. I decided that was something I could learn more about her over time. After all, we sat next to each other. So for the first step, nice to sit next to you, I leaned over and said in a low voice after introductions had ended. Same. She gave me a bright smile that didn't match the image I had of her from her intro. I guess she got nervous in front of a group of people that wasn't necessarily shy. Since we were sitting next to each other and all, we became friends quickly, and after about a month I had learned a lot more about her. Kid was taking piano lessons and liked music class. She was okay at gym, she was smart and usually got 100% on all her tests. She liked books and would often be in the library with girlfriends during breaks. We lent each other textbooks and got in each other's business during class. I had never had so much fun at school, to the point that when the first term ended, I didn't even want to go on summer vacation. During summer vacation, the only times we saw each other were during radio exercises, and we had fewer chances to talk. On the last day of my third grade summer, I was packing my school bag in the living room when it happened. I saw the future. A rainy day. On the way home from school, Keed nearly falls in a river. I reach for her, and then, like a scene change, I return to consciousness. On the living room TV, it was saying that Typhoon 21 was headed for the archipelago of Japan. The river must have been running high in my prediction because of the typhoon. The first day of school after summer vacation. Even though the typhoon was on its way, school wasn't cancelled, so it seemed like we would have the opening ceremony and classes. According to my mom, school wouldn't be cancelled unless there were storm warnings. Be careful. I will. My dad saw me off. When I opened the door, it was rainy outside, but not particularly hard, and the ground wasn't wet all the way under the eaves, either. I opened my umbrella and went outside. The wind wasn't blowing very much. I headed to the meeting point to walk to school with the kids from my neighborhood. My heart beat faster at the thought that I would get to talk to Keith a lot like before summer break. But when I arrived at Keith's side, the prediction from the day before crossed my mind. Keith's outfit, a pink t-shirt with frills on the shoulders and denim shorts, was what she had worn in the future I had seen. I was right, today was the day. After mentally bombing to save her, I spoke to her as if nothing out of the ordinary was happening. Morning. Oh, morning. No one was coming, so I was wondering if we really had school or not. She turned to me and smiled. Seems like we have it. Although I think giving us the day off would be fine. I replied and looked up at the sky, like Keith had been a moment ago. It was covered in gray clouds that were moving quickly. The wind up above must have been strong. As I chatted for a bit with Keith, the other kids started to show up. Once we had all gathered, I was off to school next to Keith for the first time in a while. I looked outside from the window seat at the back of the classroom. The rain was falling faster. The drops hit the windows and blurred the view of the courtyard. The wind was also stronger than earlier. The bell for third period rang. Usually the teacher would be in the classroom before the bell, but she wasn't here yet. The class started to get noisy. Just as I started talking to Keith about where the teacher must be, the door to the classroom opened, and she came in, rushing slightly. Without saying a word, she went to the podium and began writing something on the blackboard. Mixed into the sound of the rain, the clacking of the chalk against the blackboard echoed in the classroom. As I'm sure you all know, a typhoon is approaching. Today's classes have been cancelled, so you're all going to go home in groups. She spoke rapidly. The classroom buzzed again. Then she raised her voice. Please get ready to go home and assemble at the meeting places I've written on the chalkboard. Each group had a classroom to meet in. Keith's house was near mine, so it seemed like we would be able to walk part way home together. Students who lived in the same area gathered in 8 classrooms on the first floor of the building, and once the group's members were all present, they left. Each group had a teacher chaperoning. The group we were in was a little late in gathering, but then we set out. The wind wasn't at storm level yet, but it was strong enough that even with an umbrella open, everything knees down got soaked. 20 of us walked in 2 lines. I knew that when I was 16 I would be taller, but Keith was still taller than me at this point. I absent-mindedly watched her pink school bag come in and out of view behind her red umbrella as we walked along. If I walked past my house to go with Keith, it would probably seem suspicious, and the teacher would probably stop me. See you later, I said in my head when we reached my house, and I had no choice but to part from the group. I heard the teacher shout extra loudly, "Get home safe." I pretended to go home, then backtracked and secretly followed the group, taking care not to get spotted or fall behind. 5 small umbrellas and 1 big one were walking about 10 meters ahead. The teacher was sure to go with the student who had the house farthest away. That was why Keith had been alone in the future I saw. About 3 minutes after I started following the group, there was a fork in the road. This was where Keith and one other kid parted from the group. As I expected, the teacher went along with the other 3 kids. Soon after they left the group, Keith parted from the other student, too. Then she was alone. I kept following her in secret. There was a little stone bridge not far from Keith's house. She crouched in the corner of it. I wondered what had happened. She stood and returned to the bridge. I worried she would notice me, so I stiffened up, but she just went by the river and crouched down again. I could see Keith crouching by the riverside. This is what I had seen in the prediction. I ran over to her. Just then, she reached a hand toward the water. Her body wobbled, and she was about to fall in. The moment I reached her side, her foot slipped and the river nearly swallowed her up. The roar of the river was receded, and I saw her movements in slow motion. I stretched out my hand. It reached her. The moment I grabbed her hand, time sped back up. "Whoa!" she screamed, and the 2 of us fell onto our butts on the bank. The blue umbrella I'd been holding fell to the ground, and the red umbrella Keith had been holding was washed away in the river. My butt got on the ground, and I felt the wet dirt and grass under my hands. In the prediction I thought I had been a bit more slick, but I guess not. Still, I was glad I'd made it in time. Ryle. Her face said she wondered what I was doing there. "Are you okay?" "Yeah. Thanks. Your umbrella got washed away." "Ack. What should I do?" Keith sat on her knees and peered into the river. But the umbrella wasn't there anymore. It had probably been swept away and gone under the bridge. The cloudy water near there was splashing and spraying. The water that couldn't fit under the bridge must have been overflowing. The water level was approaching the top of the bridge. "I think you have to give up on the umbrella." Keith turned to me looking like she was about to cry. "By the way, what were you doing here? Look." She pointed at a bottle. It was spinning around trapped by a tree branch. It looked like there was a pink flower inside. In the cloudy river water, it looked really beautiful, so I could see how it caught her eye. "You were trying to get that?" "Yeah." It seemed like she hadn't given up yet. Was it that important to her for some reason? The bottle seemed close enough to reach if I stretched. I crouched at the very edge of the river and put my right hand out. I was nearly there but couldn't reach. It was only a little farther. I pushed my right shoulder out a bit more, and the pad of my middle finger touched the bottle. Then I managed to pull it my way using that finger. I got it, just as I said that and was about to show it to Keith. My left foot dug right into the mud as it slipped. I lost my balance and my body dipped toward the water. I didn't let go of the bottle. I felt someone grab the shoulder of the arm holding the bottle. It wasn't Keith's. It was too big to be hers. "Hup!" It was my dad's voice. He pulled me back onto the bank. "Dad, are you alright?" "Yeah." "What are you doing here? I'm sure you know," he said in a low voice. He must have predicted this would happen. "It's dangerous by the water, so both of you come over here." He took us back to the stone bridge. I thought we would get in trouble, but he didn't scold us. "Keith, are you hurt?" "No." "Ryle, I'm okay." "Okay, good. Here you go." I handed Keith the bottle. "Thanks." There were patches of mud on the bottle, but the pale pink flower wasn't wilted at all. Its 5 petals were spread wide. "Alright. Ryle and I will walk you home." The 3 of us headed for Keith's house. My dad used my umbrella and Keith and I walked under my dad's big one together. When my dad explained what happened, Keith's mom gave us an almost exaggerated thank you. After dropping Keith off, I went home with my dad. "Nice job saving the girl, except then you saved me." It's only natural for a parent to save their kid. But hey, if you saw the future, you could have brought another umbrella. What about you? You saw it, too, didn't you? I didn't see that far. I didn't know you were going to come. I see. In the prediction I only had my umbrella. Plus, aren't you happy you got to share one with Keith? He teased me. 3. See you later. Have a good day. My mom and dad saw me off. The cherry trees at the shrine were in full bloom. The gravel covering the grounds had petals mixed in here and there. Starting today, I'm a high schooler. Mayhana High. I was able to get into the same high school as Keed. I was in class 1-5, and I saw Keed's name on the roster as well. When I reached the classroom, Keed was already seated in the back row on the window side. She had part of her long hair in a slender braid like she used to in elementary school. Her hair waved prettily in the breeze coming in through the open windows. The scene could have been a painting. I wanted to look at her forever, but I couldn't very well do that. I entered through the back door and went straight to her desk to say hi. Yo. Nice to be in the same class again. Yeah. Same. Her reply was somewhat distant as I expected. At some point, this is how things had ended up. We were better friends in elementary school, so I wondered when she had started disliking me. I was starting to get anxious that my prediction wouldn't come true. Since she was so unapproachable, I headed to my seat right away. Mine was window side in the first row. I set my bag on the desk and sat down. I liked sitting by the window where I could feel the nice breeze. Class 1-5's homeroom teacher was a comparably young, 30-something, lady. She had a gentle voice and spoke slowly. After the entrance ceremony during homeroom, she was giving us some warnings about high school life. It's okay to get a part-time job, but you need to apply with the school. The guidance counselor has the forms, so please go pick them up and turn them in yourself. Her voice warped for a moment and my field of view changed. I knew right away it was a prediction. But this was strange. It was the same scenario as when I was 6. July 27th, the day of the Oromi River fireworks. On Kazanade Hill looking out over the town. I'm looking up at the sky with Keed, but when the Yancha Kiramo bursts, I'm the one who says I like her. The scene changed. Keed is sleeping in a room I don't recognize. When her eyes open, she looks at the calendar hung on the wall near the entrance to the room. And then she rolls to face up again and says, 2 weeks. In the next instant, the scene changed again, and I was back in the classroom. I was so confused. The teacher was still talking, but none of what she was saying was registering. I closed my eyes in order to organize my thoughts. Unlike the future I had seen when I was 6, I was the one confessing my feelings to Keed. That was strange. It was the same Yancha Kirama, but one prediction showed her saying she liked me and one showed me saying I liked her. It was bizarre for there to be 2 predictions of the same future. And there was something else that bugged me. Why had I seen the future of Keed opening her eyes? If the 2 scenes were related, was what I just saw a prediction that Keed would dream of me telling her I liked her? Maybe I only thought this because I got predictions, but I wondered if maybe Keed could see the future too. That day we only had the ceremony and homeroom. No classes, so school ended early. I always walked to school, and that day I went home with some guys from middle school. My mind was still occupied with the prediction. I wanted to talk to my dad as soon as possible. Is it even possible that Keed can see the future? If Keed can see the future, does that mean I changed my prediction at some point? Did that mean I'll lose my ability? The thoughts swirled in my head. After parting ways with my friends, I ran home. My parents had attended the entrance ceremony, but they were already back by the time I got there. Oh? You're home. So fast. Dad, can we talk? Sure. What is it? Something about predictions. Yeah. Did you predict that? No. Just whenever you come to me with that look on your face wanting to talk. It's about predictions. What do you mean that look? That look. We moved to an empty tatami room and sat across a low table from each other. At first I wasn't sure how to explain, but I had already told him about the prediction I had when I was 6, about Keed confessing her feelings to me. So I gave him the details about the prediction I had had that day at school. And I asked if it could be possible that Keed an ability, too. The Futamis were a family of shrine maidens. Unlike our family, their shrine isn't around anymore, but given their history, it's possible. I've told you before, but her powers are related to the fact that her family has been priests at this shrine. You might be able to learn more if you ask your grandpa, but I wouldn't be surprised if Keith can see the future. It was a surprise to me, though. Aside from my own family, I had only ever heard stories about predicting the future in the context of the occult, and I never imagined a girl I would date in the future would have the power and even predict the same scene as me. One other question. If Keith does get predictions, then is it possible that we would predict conflicting futures? I saw a scene of her telling me she liked me, but what she was going to see was the same day and the same location, me telling her I liked her. I'm not sure about that one, said my dad. You can change predictions. So it's possible that the prediction you had has changed in these 10 years. But changing a prediction is something you do on purpose. If you tried to change it, that's different. But if you didn't, then a prediction shouldn't change very easily. Were they really contradicting each other? Think back. No contradiction? That meant they were the same scene. The Oromi River fireworks. When the Yanshikudama was launched, we were both saying the same thing. What could it be if it wasn't a contradiction? Thanks. I'll think about it. I left the tatami room wondering if I could unravel the inconsistency. If you have more questions, ask anytime. I heard my dad's low voice behind me. I had liked Keith ever since elementary school, so I didn't have any issue with telling her my feelings like in her prediction. But that would change my prediction, and I'd lose my ability. The reason I'd been able to save Keith when we were kids was thanks to that ability. If I lost it, I might not be able to rescue someone important to me next time. So our predictions couldn't clash. That night, I laid in my bed and thought about it, but I couldn't find an answer. A week later, I had been thinking about the two predictions every day, but I could still only see them as contradicting. I was getting used to high school, and I'd made new friends. We hadn't even started club visits yet, but my plan was to join the soccer club like I had done in middle school. With no club, I got home from school early. When I arrived, I opened the door and Mom was standing there. Oh? You scared me. Hi. Hey. You came back with perfect timing. Can you carry this into the main house for me? There was a box of cider in the hall. My grandpa on Mom's side, who lived in another town, was always sending us this stuff, so he must have sent some more. The cardboard box said 250 milliliters x 30. I mentally calculated that it was about 7.5 kilograms. The main house was right next to ours. I walked carefully along the stepping stone path and carried the box against me in order to open the door. No one was inside. Leaving the box in front of the tatami room's takanoma, I went into the living room where I found my grandfather. He usually had the radio on, but today it was off, and he seemed to be busy with something. "Ario? Want one of these?" When he noticed me, he held out a box of some kind of Japanese sweet I didn't recognize. Nah, I don't really like sugary stuff. I guess we got another box of cider, so I set it in front of the takanoma. I see. He probably didn't care that much for cider, but he smiled anyhow. What's that? I glanced at the photo of fireworks on the table in front of him. Oh? This? It's a photo of last year's fireworks? Huh? Who took it? Who? A photographer? Of course. If I took it, there would be double the fireworks, because it'd be blurry. I laughed. Exactly. He laughed. Sure looks like a pro took it. What a pretty shot. He smiled in satisfaction. I'm choosing the photograph to put on this year's flyer. This is last year's. The Yanshikudama, the main event, took up the whole page. The previous year's was apparently orange with some red. Sure is. I suppose it's best to show the Yanshikudama. I remembered the Yanshikudama from my prediction. It burst with big orange lines, and at the end, a number of little pink lights glittered as it disappeared. I recalled the prediction I saw when I was 6. It was also the Yanshikudama. The orange lines were the same, but I was pretty sure the sparkles at the end were green. The two predictions I saw had different fireworks? So were they different fireworks shows? But this was the only one in the area. The only chance to see a Yanchikudama from Casanate Hill was this fireworks show. So was it the Oromi River fireworks in different years? No. The calendar in Keith's room had been this year, and she had said 2 weeks, at least. Keith was under the impression that her prediction was this year. The person who had the prediction wouldn't mistake the year. So then, Grandpa, the Oromi River fireworks have one big Yanchikudama at the end. Right. That's right. There's just one every year. That's right. Could that be 2? Like when you take a photo and it blurs. Except not at the same time. His glasses slipped and he looked at me with a bit of a stumped expression. The Oromi River fireworks were a tradition that had been going on for decades, and supposedly it was one of my priest ancestors who started it to help develop the town and placate the spirits. Even with the expanded scale of the present day, my grandfather was on the organizing committee. That's why he had been selecting the photo for the flyer. The flyer wasn't done yet, but apparently the program for the year's show was basically decided. When I mentioned that I wanted them to fire Yanchikudama because of the prediction I had when I was 6, he said he would call a meeting with the committee. On the day of the gathering, he headed out enthusiastically. There was nothing I could do at that point. I went to the main house. At the time I thought he might be back and waited on Ianga for him to come home. In the yard where the pine trees my grandfather tended and a wash basin, the nice atmosphere was calming. After a little while, I sensed someone behind me. I went into the living room to find that he had come home. His expression wasn't what I'd been hoping for. It didn't seem like the discussion had gone well. He told me the program wasn't finalized yet, but that it would be difficult to suddenly add another Yanchikudama. They couldn't disregard his proposal, but apparently launching one Yanchikudama was hard enough. For a while, the Yanchikudama was the largest firework in the world. There were lots of hurdles, both financial and safety-wise, to setting one off. They said they would ask the pyrotechnician, but that it probably wouldn't work out. Apparently they told him they had to order the Yanchikudama almost a year in advance. Sorry, Ryo. Oh well. Sorry for the impossible request. He must have been awfully upset that he couldn't deliver. He was so tall, but on his way back to his room, he looked so shrunken from behind. What should I do? From a safety perspective, they were cleared to fire one, so that should be no problem. The budget wasn't something I could do anything about on my own. Apparently one Yanchikudama cost 2.5 million yen. My teacher had said that we could get a part-time job if we applied with the school, but there were only 3 months until the fireworks. There was no way I could earn 2.5 million by then. And if there was no Yanchikudama available in the first place, we wouldn't be able to set it off no matter how much money I got together. After dinner, I was vegging out in front of the TV. I let out a big sigh. I heard about the fireworks, Dad said from behind the couch. Yeah, I guess it won't work out, I said, turning around. But you unraveled the contradiction. Right, I guess so? I don't think the predictions clash this way, but is that true? It must be if you say so. You predicted it, after all. Rather than find the right answer, you need to give it. I'm sure it'll be correct. That's how it goes. That's how it goes. And you want to fire off to Yanchikudama. Yeah, but I guess they can't. Make sure you don't have any regrets. I felt like he was giving me a push. There was something I felt like I should do. I think I'm going to meet with the pyrotechnician. Dad nodded in satisfaction. Like he was saying, that's my boy. He told me that the fireworks for Oromi River's show were all made by a company called Miyamorianka, located in this town, but up in the mountains. I called and made an appointment. It went smoothly when I mentioned the name Ichimilaya. 4. After the cherry blossoms had fallen and there was more green around town, I was pedaling toward Miyamorianka. It wasn't hot or cold out, just the right temperature. It felt great to slice through the wind on my bike. It took about 50 minutes to bike to Miyamorianka. I kept my speed even, pedaling rhythmically. After I passed through the residential area, there were fewer and fewer buildings in the landscape, while the number of fields and paddies increased. The side of the road was all fields, and the strawberries were fruiting. Further along, the number of trees increased, and I was finally in the mountains. Even out there, the road was maintained and the view was open enough that plenty of sun shone through. But the slope grew steeper and steeper, so my pedaling speed fell. Riding only felt good at the beginning. By the end, I was dripping in sweat, and I arrived at Miyamorianka pushing my bike. My first impression was of an open area like a mountain campsite. A sign on the gate said Miyamorianka. The gate was open, but there was no one around. Wondering if it was their day off, I went through the gate. There were a few small buildings on the premises, and one of them was larger than the others. That one had a wooden signboard that said office. Beneath that, smaller, it said, guests, please come this way. I followed the sign and went into the building. Maybe it was because I had come out of the intense sunlight, but the inside of the building seemed dark to me. Hello. There didn't seem to be anyone around, so I raised my voice a bit to call out. From the room behind the reception area with a row of desks came a man who looked to be in his late 30s. I was struck by his slim, straight-backed appearance. He would have been the spitting image of a priest if he'd put on the robes. Hi, you're Chimlaya, right? He must have been waiting for me, since I had telephoned. Yes, that's me, I answered. This man was Katsuma Suzuki, the president of Miyamorianka. Mr. Suzuki led me to his office. Inside there was a showcase featuring all different sizes of firework shells. On the lowest shelf there was Sanshikudama, and alongside them was a plaque that noted they had an outer diameter of 90 centimeters. The Sanshikudama were pretty big, sitting heavily on the shelf. But the Yanshikudama was even bigger. So you want to set off to Yanshikudama? Mr. Suzuki said as we sat down on sofas across a coffee table. Yes, I realize it's a lot to ask for, I answered. It seems like there must be a reason, so do you mind telling me what it is? I was sure that even if I told him about seeing the future, he wouldn't believe me. I clamped up, wondering what to say. You saw it in a prediction or something. Mr. Suzuki spoke up before I could say anything. Hearing that, I froze and could feel droplets of sweat bead on my forehead. How did you know that? I finally managed to say after a moment. Well, because you're from the Chimlaya family, he grinned. What do you mean? The Suzuki family used to serve the Furami family shrine maidens. So we know about the Chimlaya family's predictions. I never knew that. Dad had always told me not to tell anyone about the predictions because no one would believe me anyhow and I could get embroiled in needless trouble. With that in mind, I was a bit frightened. Don't worry. I won't tell anyone. Even if I did, no one would believe me. What did you see? The idea of telling him about how this girl and I confessed our respective feelings was pretty embarrassing, but to get rid of the contradiction, I had to have another Yanshikudama. Telling him was better than lying to get what I wanted. Having made up my mind, I told Mr. Suzuki what I had seen. And that kid had predicted something, too. I told him everything, including how he needed Yanshikudama to get rid of the contradiction in the futures we saw. He put a hand to his chin and thought for a few moments before murmuring, I see. Then he walked to the window and looked outside. He seemed to be thinking. After a little while, Mr. Suzuki turned to me and said, Okay, I'll see what I can do. Mr. Suzuki sat back down and told me a story from the old days. This is something that happened about 1,000 years ago. There used to be 2 shrines in this region. One was the Chimlaya family's Chimlaya Jinja. The other was Furami Jinja, where the Furami family shrine maiden served. Even back then, the priests and shrine maidens had the ability to predict the future. It used to be much stronger. As the generations went by, it seems to have grown weaker. The shrine maiden at Furami Jinja was an ancestor of mine. This is a story passed down in the Suzuki family. An Ichimaya priest and a Futami Shrine maiden fell in love. This was a forbidden romance. The Futami family had, for generations, always adopted sons-in-law in order to pass on the women's prediction abilities. For the Ichimaya family, getting one of their men adopted would mean losing their prediction ability. If a Futami woman married into the Ichimaya family, it would mean losing the family's prediction ability. For both families, the marriage of this couple was something that needed to be avoided. At the time, the Futami Shrine Maiden had especially strong powers. She could see into a person's past and far into their future, and she could even affect things in different eras. Supposedly she called the power dream drops, the reason being that when she slept, tons of raindrops reflecting all different scenes would fall from the sky, and when a drop fell into her upturned eyes, she would see the world reflected in the drop. She said that 1,000 years in the future, a flower that twinkled like the stars would bloom across the sky. The reason the Suzuki family are pyrotechnicians is in part to make her prediction true. Of course, she's not here anymore, but the Suzuki family became the guardians of that prediction. In the end, the pair didn't get to see their love through. The Ichimaya priest chose his family and bid the maiden farewell. It's a sad story. When Mr. Suzuki finished his story, he took a sip from his teacup and then said, "So if there's love to be had between the Ichimaya and Futami families, I want to see you get together. Come with me." Mr. Suzuki took me somewhere. We left the building and went into the mountains. After walking on the slope for about 3 minutes, we came upon a small shrine about the size of a cottage. The shrine was made with all new wood, so it must have been built recently, and it seemed well tended. This is a shrine to the Futami family shrine maidens. When he unlocked the door and opened it, I saw that a shell like the ones in his office was enshrined in the back of the room. What was different was the size. It was larger than all the other shells I had seen. This is a Yanshikirima. Huge. Right. 120 centimeters in diameter. Wow. But what's it doing here? I don't know how the practice came about, either, but at Miyamorienka, every year we offer one of the largest fireworks of the era at this shrine. It's always been said that if we do that, then it's here if someone from the Futami family needs it. It seems like your predication has to do with the Futami family, so all I could think was that it had to do with someone's prediction. Was it the Ichimaya families or the Futami families? Or maybe it was a prediction by someone else from a different shrine? You mean you'll set this Yanshikirama off for me? By all means, said Mr. Suzuki. Fireworks take time and effort to make. A Yanshikirama takes even more. A pyrotechnician would probably have an opinion or two about having to make the thing and then offer it to the shrine without ever launching it. Fireworks are made to be set off. An item that took months to create vanishes in an instant. But they make them with love for the moment the flower of fire blooms. After that, everything moved quickly. My grandfather got the sudden program change through. It seemed that, since Mr. Suzuki offered the second Yanshikirama for free and said he was eager to try shooting 2 off, the other committee members hadn't been hard to persuade. As July came around, I pitched in on prep for the fireworks show. My grandfather picked the photo, and I went on my bike to post the Fly Run community bulletin boards around town. It was fun seeing the stack of flyers in my bicycle basket go down each time I put one up. I couldn't make fireworks, or get funding, or participate in the meetings, but in this role I had a sense I was being useful. All that was left was to invite Key to the fireworks and wait for the day to come. If there was one problem, it was that you couldn't really say I was good enough friends with Key to go to the fireworks with her. I wanted to get closer to her before then. If I abruptly invited her and she turned me down, both of our predictions would fail. Plus, I always just wanted to get along with her better. But Kid and I normally only exchanged hellos. Every morning she came near my seat to talk to her friend who sat near me, Miso Watanabe. We only ever said good morning when she passed by. July 13th. Kid must have had her prediction on this day. She hadn't arrived yet, so I was preoccupied by the door to the classroom. Then I saw her come in. I quickly looked away and went back to talking with my friend. Keed usually would have put her bag on her desk and gone to talk to Watanabe, but today she didn't. Wondering what was up, I turned around to find her not really doing anything, just sitting in her seat. She must have had the prediction and that was affecting her. I decided to sound her out a bit. I felt bad leaving my friend hanging in our combo, but I got up and went over to Keed's desk. "What's up?" I didn't think she would talk to me about the prediction, but I decided to ask anyhow. "Huh? Up? I mean, usually you chat with Watanabe, right? Did you guys have a fight or something?" I glanced over at Watanabe, and she seemed to be absorbed in her phone. "Oh? No. Then? Do you have a fever or something?" She looked flushed. Maybe it was the prediction, but maybe she just wasn't feeling well. I moved closer to put a hand on her forehead. Slap. She brushed my hand away with the cold. "I'm fine. My hand didn't hurt." I just wondered if Keeds did. This wasn't horsing around in elementary school anymore. I couldn't go touching a girl so easily. "Alright," I said and went back to my seat, told my friend sorry, and started talking to him again. In the end, I went home without getting to talk to Keed that day. 5. Why did you end up liking Keed? Because of the prediction. My dad asked while I was helping him clean the main hall of the shrine. Why are you asking me that all of a sudden? Honestly, I didn't want to talk about my crush to my parents. But I did want to reject the idea that I fell for her because of the prediction. I was aware of it, but that's not why. Then why? Why does it matter? When I went to go clean a different area from him, he came after me dusting coolers as he went, and said, "I fell for your mother's cooking." I don't need to hear that. Awkward. Dad seemed like he had more to say, but hearing my parents' love story was even more embarrassing than talking about my crush. There wasn't any one thing that made me fall for Keed. Ever since I had saved her by the river, I would catch myself looking at her, and I realized that meant I like her. That's what an elementary schooler's crush is like. Tomorrow is the last day of school before summer vacation. I hadn't talked to Keed at all since she brushed my hand away. I think it was difficult for either of us to start a conversation. So I hadn't invited her to the fireworks yet. If I invited her and she said no, I'd be out of luck. But after getting so many people to help me out, it would be unforgivable to not even manage to invite her. As I was sitting on the step in the entryway putting on my shoes, the door before my eyes suddenly warped. I saw a completely different view as if the scene had changed. It's July 19th, 8:18 a.m., on the way to school. I'm running. I can't see Keed from behind. There's a light truck in my peripheral vision. Keed rushes into the street. I reach my hand toward her. Then the scene changed again and I was back in the entryway of my house. I took my phone out of my pocket and undid the lock. It was 8:12. If I ran to the place in the prediction, I would make it in time. I didn't see her get hit by the truck. But if I didn't do anything, it wouldn't be strange if that were what happened. As it was mid-July, it was getting to be proper summer. I could feel the sweat pouring from every part of my body as I ran. I raced past other kids on their way to school. Just as I was running out of breath, I saw Keed's back. She was walking so carelessly that I could notice from behind. I ran even faster. The road was right in front of her. I reached out for her arm and pulled her back. "Watch out! Are you stupid?" I shouted at her without meaning to. I must have scared her, but I had to say it. The light truck passed by. Now I had saved her twice. "Sorry," she said, looking at me in surprise and then hanging her head. Keed and I headed to school together. I made sure to walk on the car side the whole way. I wasn't about to have her barreling into the street again. I was so worried about her. "Hey!" I heard Keed's voice from where she was walking half a step behind. I'm sorry. It's okay. Plus, you already apologized, didn't you?" "Yeah, but this is for today, and the other day?" Did something happen the other day? I brushed her hand away. Oh, that was my bad. Don't worry about it. Okay, more importantly, pay attention while you're walking. I've been telling you since we were kids. I know, but you don't? Do you? And in a situation like this, shouldn't it be thanks instead of sorry? Yeah, sorry. I mean thanks. We were almost to school. I could see the guidance counselor standing outside. Supposedly he was on duty this early not only to keep an eye out for latecomers, but also as crime prevention. Not that I had anything against him personally, but I felt like he was in the way of my time alone with Keed. Then as a thank you, will you go see the fireworks with me? What? It's a thank you. So you can't say no? Okay, she said after a beat. Maybe I had been a bit aggressive, but I had no choice. I did a mental fist pump as we went through the school gate, the night of July 24th, 3 days before the fireworks. I called Keed to decide where and when to meet. Hello. Hi. She answered on the 5th ring. So I wanted to decide where we should meet and what time. Okay. I was thinking we could watch from Cazenade Hill. So can we meet in front of the stairs? Sure. That works. So in front of those stairs at 6:30. Then. Got it. What do you want to wear? For clothes. How about yukata? In my prediction when I was 6 and in Keith's more recent one, we had been wearing yukata. Yeah, yukata sounds good. You should wear one, too. She sounded excited but abruptly got brusque. Okay. Then see you at 6:30 in front of the steps in yukata? Yeah, 6:30 in front of the steps in yukata? I could tell over the phone that she was smiling. July 27th, the day of the fireworks. I had time before meeting Keed, but I had already put on my yukata. I chose a black one. When I went into the living room, cooling my face with a folding fan, Mom and Dad were there. Don't you look handsome in your yukata? Going to the fireworks? Mom said when she saw me. Yeah. With who? Does it matter? With a girl? I mean, now, Dad threw me a lifeline. Don't be late. Mom didn't pester me anymore about it. I'd drank some cold barley tea and left the living room to go up the stairs back to my room. Partway up I got a head rush. Everything went dark before my eyes, and my view changed. It's July 27th, 6:35 p.m. Yoromi Riverbed area. That's where they're shooting off the fireworks. The pyrotechnicians are all standing there. Mr. Suzuki is there, too. The tubes for launching the shells are scattered across the ground. 5 punks who shouldn't have been there laugh as they walk away. In the next instant, my consciousness switched back to the stairs in my house. I was so sopping wet it seemed like all the tea I had just drunk had turned straight into sweat. It was my 3rd prediction related to the fireworks. They wouldn't even go off. And I wasn't in the picture at all. If I had predicted that I prevented them from being cancelled, that would have been fine. But that wasn't what I saw. It had just been a prediction that the fireworks might be cancelled. The Yanshikurama being set off or the whole show being cancelled. No matter which prediction came true, one would be changed. Either way, I would lose my ability. And if the fireworks were cancelled, Keed would lose her power, too. If I went back to the living room, my dad would be there. If I went to the main house, my grandpa would probably be there. There were people I could consult nearby. I could ask if such a prediction was even possible and what I should do. Maybe there was a way to cancel out the contradiction like I had with Keith's prediction and mine. I headed for the door. I put on my getter and flew out of the house. I wasn't going to the main house. I was going to the Oromi River, where they were going to set off the fireworks. I didn't have time to ask for advice. Chatting about canceling out contradictions would be too slow. I jumped onto my bicycle and pedaled as hard as I could. The clock in the entryway had said 5:55 p.m. I was meeting Keith at 6:30. It would take about 20 minutes to reach the launch area, 40 minutes round trip. It would take 3 minutes to walk to the meeting place. If I went straight, I could get there a little sooner. But even then, I might not make it in time. In any case, I went as fast as I could. I passed by a bulletin board displaying the flyer I had posted. As I maintained my speed, I thought about which road would get me there the quickest. The narrow street I had taken while posting flyers was a shortcut. Coming out of the narrow street, my field of vision opened up. I could see far into the distant sky. The Oromi riverbed was right in front of me, but I couldn't go any farther. There was a fence set up to block cars and a sign that said no entry. I couldn't go inside. All fireworks shows had a no entry zone, but since the Oromi River show included an unusually large show, the Yanshikudama, the no entry zone was larger than most. I took my phone out of my yukata sleeve to check the time 6:10. I had made a decent effort. In all my predictions so far I had been able to see my own actions, but this time was different. Changing a prediction meant choosing a future. I couldn't act according to the prediction. I had to decide the goal and what steps to take to get there. I put my phone in my bike basket and turned back to look for a different route to the launch area. I had turned my bike 180 degrees and was about to hop back on when I noticed a group of people walking toward me. Aside from the one out front, they looked younger than me. These must be the 5 punks from the prediction. I was sure of it. I decided not to get back on my bike, and instead pushed it as I called out to them. Looks like this is a no entry zone. So, the big guy out front shot me a piercing look as he spoke. I only told you so you don't have to come all the way over here to find out, I replied. The big guy slowly approached and then bumped my shoulder on purpose as he passed by. The others didn't bump into me, but they all followed the first guy. I let go of my bike, turned around, and caught the first guy by the shoulder. My bike clattered to the ground. The buzz of the cicadas that had been in the background the whole time suddenly stopped. Then they began to drone again. I said, "It's a no entry zone." "Right, Takeshi?" "Mikami." There were 2 guys who hadn't walked past me yet. Younger kids who had been on the middle school soccer team with me. Takeshi was taller than me and cut a slim figure. He was a cheerful guy who often set a positive mood among the younger guys. Mikami was shorter than me and small overall. He didn't stand out, but he was the type who could cooperate well and managed to be friends with everyone. That must have been how he had ended up connected to these shady characters. I knew both of them well, and we had even hung out outside of soccer club, so I think they respected me more than not. I couldn't imagine them picking a fight with me. The leader turned to me with a dubious look. "I wouldn't steer you wrong. You should give this one up," I said loudly enough for the 2 behind me to hear. After a moment, I heard Mikami's voice behind me. "If the Himalaya is telling us not to, maybe we better not." He seemed to be talking to the guy in front of me. When he bristled, Takeshi spoke up. "We can't fight with the Himalaya. He's a friend who used to be in our soccer club." The guy seemed dissatisfied. But if 2 of the 5 people knew me and went as far as to say this, he probably couldn't ignore them. "Sorry to stop you short like this," I said and patted him on the shoulder. Looking at his face, I could tell he wasn't going to lay a hand on me. He clicked his tongue in frustration and said, "You won't get away with this again." He left without bumping my shoulder. The other 2 went with him. Takeshi and Mikami bobbed their heads to me before going after them. "Will the fireworks go on now? They won't come back to breach the no entry zone after I leave?" There was no way to assuage the uneasiness I felt. My phone had been thrown out of my bicycle basket when the bike fell, so I picked it up, and when I checked the time, it was 6:14. It would be close. I put the phone into my yukata sleeve, righted my bike, and hopped on. I rode back the way I'd come. I went straight to the meeting place. If I didn't, I would end up making Keed wait. That could affect the future. I could see the meeting place up ahead. Keed wasn't there yet. I made it in time. I slowed down and dismounted. I parked my bike a little ways away from the meeting place in the shadows of some trees. I walked back to the meeting place and fixed my disheveled yukata as I caught my breath. After calming down a bit, I took a big breath when I noticed Keed walking toward me with short little steps. I was in love the moment I saw her. "Were you waiting long?" she asked. Her yukata was indigo with a number of vermilion goldfish on it. Her hair was done and she looked more alluring and grown up than usual. "Nah, I just got here. Your yukata is cute. You clean up pretty well yourself," she said, blushing. "Wanna get going?" I held out my hand to her. She hesitated a bit before holding her own out, and in the end it was me who took her hand. It was smaller than I expected. It really felt like a girl's hand. In elementary school, when we all walked to school together for the first time, I got teased by an older kid for holding hands with the girl next to me. I hadn't held hands with anyone since then. The girl whose hand I'd held back then was Keed. We went up the stone stairs side by side. There must have been 100. When I looked at Keed's feet, I saw she was wearing geta like me. I walked a little slower. Besides the clacking of our geta, I could hear my heart pounding. I must have been pretty nervous. As I got used to climbing the stairs and geta, I was gradually able to look up from my feet, and I noticed the gentle glow from the lamps along our right side. The stone lamps continued all the way to the top, creating a really dreamlike atmosphere. This place is so cool. I didn't know what it was like at night. Yeah, I had played here often as a kid. When I tried recalling the daytime scenery, it seemed the same but different. After a few minutes we reached the top. At the summit was an open grassy area. The softness of the ground came through my geta with each step. Usually the town was probably darker, but today, because of the festival, it was illuminated by stall lights and lanterns. We both walked toward the fence as if it were the natural thing to do. The closer we got, the more a view of town opened up. "It's so pretty," Keed sighed. "Did you want to go to the market?" "No. The fireworks are plenty," but I could see her eyes sparkling with the curiosity of a little kid. I checked the time on my phone. It was 6:58. The show would begin in 2 minutes. "They're about to start." When I said that, I suddenly felt worried. Will the fireworks actually start? Will both Yanchi Kurama be set off as planned? Does Keed actually like me? Will she say she likes me? Did I manage to cancel out the contradictions? Will I really lose my prediction ability? There was a lot to worry about. But my anxiety was overwritten the moment I heard a boom and saw the lights. A single shell had zoomed into the sky. That was the signal that the show was starting. It started. I felt a mix of relief and the sense that I had lost my prediction ability, though the fact hadn't sunk in. Still, the fireworks that banged one after another were fantastic, so for the moment, it didn't bother me that I would lose my ability. "Wow," I murmured. "Were fireworks always this great?" I had seen my fair share, but these seemed prettier than the rest. Maybe I thought that every time. I turned toward Keed. I wondered what her face looked like while she was watching the fireworks. But it turned out she was looking at me. Our eyes met. Her features were charming in the light from the fireworks. But this wasn't when I was supposed to say it. I turned back to the fireworks. Shells fired from 5 locations at once lit up the sky in a multitude of colors. There was a smile emoji, a red and green one like a sliced open watermelon. These are called pattern shells. Apparently they even come in the shapes of popular characters these days. The fireworks headed into the sky were like rockets blasting off into space. As I wondered when they would burst, they flew higher and higher. Then a flower bloomed with a boom. The higher they flew, the larger the blossom. Around the middle of the show, there were so many fireworks going off that the noises never stopped. A star mine! More shells were fired before the ones in the air even burst. Up in the sky, the fireworks changed color and shit over and over. It was enough to make your breath catch. We enjoyed the fireworks together for about an hour. Soon it would be time for the Yonchikirama. I swallowed hard. With a whiz louder than all the others, a little orange light shot into the sky. Normally that would be the final Yonchikirama. But today should be different. The light flew higher than any of the other fireworks and bloomed in the sky. It filled my whole field of vision. Tons of orange lines slowly fell. I heard Keith's voice. "I like you." The sparkles at the end glittered green and vanished. I told him I liked him. I ignored the prediction about him confessing his feelings for me, and just out and told him I liked him. The Yanshikudama I had seen in my prediction had faded. A silence, surely one like a typical night on Cazenade Hill, hung in the air. My prediction didn't come true. The moment I said I liked him, the future changed, or maybe it already had. He wouldn't tell me he liked me. Instead, for once I had been able to be honest about my feelings. How funny, I thought. I finally opened up, but if my prediction about him confessing his feelings for me didn't come true, maybe it means he doesn't like me that much. If so, then I'm about to be rejected. I squeezed my money pouch and suppressed the urge to run away. I heard Keith's voice next to me. The same voice from the prediction where she said, "I like you." She told me she liked me. The prediction had come true. I was happy about that, but the pure happiness of being liked was stronger. All that was left was to make Keith's prediction a reality. I looked up at the sky. "Please? I need you to go off." Up until last year, this would have been the end of the show. But this year was different. Another show was supposed to go up. There was a pause after the first Yanshikudama. I could tell my heart was beating fast and hard. Then I heard a distant sound. It was the whiz of a Yanshikudama firing. I turned to Keith. Her body was stiff and she was looking down. A boom sounded. It was the blooming of the second Yanshikudama. Keith looked toward the fireworks in surprise. I glanced at the fireworks, too. Among the long orange lines of light were the pink sparkles Keith had seen in her prediction. I turned back to her, and then I said it. "I like you." Keith turned toward me. She looked so surprised. She couldn't seem to figure out what was going on. So I said it again. "I like you, too, Keith. Will you go out with me?" Since I had made Keith tell me her feelings first, I took it upon myself to make it official. "Yes," was all she said, looking like she might cry at any moment. We started to hear bugs buzzing nearby. It was as if they were telling us the fireworks were over. Epilogue. 1 month later. I hadn't seen the future at all since that night. It started to sink in that I had really lost my prediction ability. But I didn't have any regrets, and even if I did lose it, what did that matter? I would just be the same as everyone else. I would decide what would happen next myself. That was all. Up to this point had been a special case. Around the end of summer vacation, I decided to visit Cazenade Hill during the day. Keith was beside me. Climbing the stone steps was quite different from the night of the fireworks, as I expected, and it reminded me of being a little kid. And instead of get a clacking, we could hear the cicadas. It's nice during the day, too. When we got to the summit, the breeze pleasantly caressed our cheeks. Yeah, the other day it had been dark, so I didn't notice, but there was a flower patch in one corner. A few little pink flowers were blooming. I didn't know there were flowers up here. Uh-huh. These are called star flowers. Keith crouched down to get a closer look. Star flowers. I don't know the official name, but that's what my mom told me. Apparently there used to be a shrine here, and our ancestors were the Shine Maidens. Obviously it's not like that anymore. These flowers were here back then, too. Supposedly, I thought about the story I heard from Mr. Suzuki. They're pretty? Yeah. Do you remember in elementary school when I almost fell in the river and you saved me? Of course. There was a flower in the bottle you grabbed for me. Right. It was one of these star flowers. I recognized it and that's why I was trying to get the bottle. Then I almost fell. Oh? Huh. I crouched next to Keith. Up close, I could see that the star flower's 5 petals were stretched all the way open. Yeah. The one you picked up from me that time had roots and everything, so I planted it here after the typhoon ended. Which means that flowers' babies might be blooming here. I remembered the little pink flower blooming in the bottle spinning in the river on the day of the typhoon. It definitely was the same kind of flower. I wonder why they're called star flowers. My mom doesn't know, and neither does my grandma. It's light pink and seems to be almost glowing. So maybe they thought it looked like a star. After thinking for a moment, I opened my mouth to speak. So actually, had these flowers been blooming here for 1,000 years? When the star flowers swayed in the wind, it looked like a little firework.